A second win there for Team 8, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this word out there for both teams. Disorganization. I feel like the fights were full of them, and that's why it went back and forth and went so late into the game.
Yeah, I think a large part of that is the fact that they had this composition that didn't have a front line for Team 8. They're trying to play around that, but that's not exactly their style. Porpoise Pops was on more of a pokey, disengaged champ. And then on Complexity's side, I just think it was lack of vision control in some parts, and then they kept giving up dragons still. Like, the dragon control is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, they were just constantly bleeding those dragons. They're like, oh, hey, and we just got Baron. Let's let them have dragon for free again. And then they were up 5k gold still, just like off dragons after like they got Baron and they got ahead in team fights. And the only time they made plays was when Cali Trolls got caught out for like whatever reason. They weren't ever trying to push up. They weren't ever trying to press their advantage, get those deep boards, engage a fight, go for the inhibitor. They were just hoping that Team 8 made a mistake, and Cali Trolls got caught out a couple times. Things got a little scary for Team 8, and then Cali Trolls wasn't really getting the good ultis off. He was missing a lot of them, but then at the end, when he got that flash body slam, finally what he needed to do won them the game, so he really turned it around at the end, and there is definitely a lot of sloppiness there.
I think it goes back to his TP usage and how I was praising him so highly for it, because coming in from the right side where there wasn't any wards. They didn't see that coming. Flash body slam into Prawley to just blow him up. Perfect execution there by Cali Trolls in the final moments.
You definitely have to hand it to Cali Trolls as the playmaker of Team 8. So I want to now go back and look at the picks, because Complexity had the opportunity this time to counterpick into that Gragas. They chose Renekton. Zion, is that what you go with against Gragas, or were there other options?
I think he definitely could have went for the Lulu pick. The thing with Gragas is ever since he got nerfed, he has huge mana issues. You saw Cali Trolls, he was constantly at like 10%, 0 mana like the whole lane. And with Renekton, he was able to go up like 40 farm, and that was great, but he needed to press his advantage. You saw him going aggressively for the blue buff. He should have been getting into the jungle, getting those deep wards. He should have been pushing his advantage into mid. As that tanky Renekton, he went full tank items. You can easily dive that mid lane on that Tristana. You don't even have to dive her, just pressure the tower, because if you're Renekton, you fall off so hard late game. You saw him. He was just kind of like a meat shield, and you need to kind of just go mid, go bottom, like go for dragons. Look for the objectives with your early game advantage, and he didn't really do that as much as he could have.
There was definitely a struggle by both teams to engage. You already commented, Zirene, on the fact that Team 8, their only engagement came from either a good hook or by the Gragas ultimate, which he was throwing out pretty liberally there. And then on the side of Complexity, you have a Renekton who's trying desperately to flank, and there were whole minutes at a time where we're watching him try and chase down these slippery AD carries and such. And for that reason, we weren't able to see either team ever get a clean engage in the way that they wanted to.
Yeah, I really did like the fact that they had the Kha'Zix paired with the double AD carry, because he's just able to poke and set up the Black Cleaver stacks and throw out his W constantly so that people can't actually close that distance. And Renekton, he's just going to walk at you. He needs the slice to get the dice in that extra distance, but West wasn't getting it because they're keeping him far away.
You have the Gragas Qs on top of that
yeah.
as well. We do have to jump into the first replay, because I feel like this first replay at 37 minutes, 37 and a half minutes into the game, around the Baron pit, very much illustrates the fact that both teams were making kind of sloppy decisions. The first sloppy decision is on the side of Complexity here to start the Baron. So Zion, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, so Complexity wasn't really like looking for that much this game, but as soon as they got the pick was when they finally decided to try to force something, and then this was a bad scenario because everyone, Team 8 was closing all around them. They had all that Tristana Corki poke going in. They land the shockwave, but it doesn't really end up mattering because they got the box down and they're kiting out around. Maple Street gets in a pretty good position, but then he just grabs the lantern at such a bad time, and then Ori is able to just get the ball on him, and then he ends up dying. But this is kind of how chaotic it gets.
Yeah, and Prawley actually flashed to help close that distance to get the ball right on top of it. And then at this point, Kez is just going too deep. This is one of the first times we saw him go too deep. We see it happen again later on.
Much later in the game, and that was catastrophic.
It's very uncharacteristic of Kez, too, because a lot of Complexity tributes a lot of their late game and their late game shot calling to Kez, because he's very level-headed, and it's very unlike him to go hard.
So it ends up being a 3-for-3 at the end of that. And I guess you can say, all right, fine, both teams break even. But again, the purpose in showing that replay was the fact that both teams, their gameplay in this game particularly was kind of riddled with chaos and minor mistakes here and there, but it ultimately resulted in a 60-minute game where it comes down to that one fight. And I don't think any team ever wants to leave it up to one fight.
Yeah, I definitely think that Complexity needs to go back to the thing that they were doing the most successfully in the set, which was split pushing. You saw Robert X. Lee on that Lucian. He got like 5 out of their 6 towers that game, just literally walking up a lane and split pushing it. And teammate didn't really have a good response to that. They were just forcing engages. And since they were far enough ahead and people were out of position, they got the towers, they got the picks. But if Complexity can get that split push started sooner and set up for it, I think they can work off that really well because they're not doing the objective game well at all. They're bleeding dragons, they're bleeding vision control, they're bleeding barons. They need to look for split push or something that they can do more effectively.
So as ZionSpartan, the premier split pusher of the LCS, do you ever give any other advice other than split push all the time?
No, that's the only way.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I want to nitpick on one little thing really quickly, is the fact that we saw a completed Liandry's on Orianna. I entirely agreed with his decision to pick up the Haunting guys for early magic penetration because teammate at that point in the game, when he did pick it up, hadn't been building magic resist. So he was going to be chunking. But at the time he decided to build Liandry's, we saw Banshee's Veils across the board. We saw a Locket on Thresh. At that point, I would have sold the Haunting guys and gone straight for a Void Staff. I think it would have been far more effective and possibly changed the outcome of a few of the fights.
Yeah, he eventually did do that. Probably also did fall behind in CS over Slushy, who he had a big lead over in the mid game, but they didn't push those types of advantages, which was a problem with the Renekton. It was a problem with the lead that they had because their bottom lane was getting shoved in, and that was completely in teammates' favor.
Yeah, the itemization was a little bit questionable there on both sides because with they built the Liandry's on Orianna and they built the GA on Kog'Maw, and that was really defensive, which is not what they needed.
All right, I do want to jump into the final replay because, again, this will illustrate what you have said multiple times, is that Cali Trolls is a playmaker, and this was a fabulous TP decision here to engage and end the game. Zirene, I'm going to let you handle this one.
All right, so Cali Trolls, he's always known for his TP positioning here, but these wards are always set up by his teammates. So he comes in from the side, and drop the beat. Okay,
there it is.
So he comes up here, uses his body slam flash to close distance, but we're going to play so good.
No, we got to go back.
It's just too much to handle.
You know what?
Yeah, that's...
Blew our mind, blew our
Gragas
system.
play was ridiculous.
That doesn't mean we can't. Yeah, it doesn't mean we can't talk about it though.
Yeah.
He did have a fabulous flash body slam engage there, which basically, I mean, I guess like 60% to zeroed because they were all at about 60% health there. But it was that first pop of the GA which forced Complexity to defend at that point. They're like, oh no, one of our members went down. Now we have to fight this.
Yeah, and the fact that those AD carries are just pelting away at people while all of that is happening, when you're holding, like, you're trying to hold your ground against AD carries, it's extremely difficult. So you want to close on them or retreat, but they didn't want to give up those extra GA kills.
Quickly, Zion, because we need to move on to the next game. I want to get your thoughts on what Complexity does at this point, because as all the series well, exactly. I know split push, but I was going to talk more about in Champion Select because I do realize that they want to go for that split push. So what do they do in Champion Select to set that split push up exactly the way they want it? Because otherwise it spells the end of their LCS careers.
I think them having that better bottom lane was huge for them, especially in the first game when they had that Lucian lane and they were pressing their advantage hard. I think they need to go back to having a bully lane bottom because they were bullying Dodo and Maple Street. Go back to that, and then I think they just need to make sure they use that advantage to actually control Dragon, because bot lane's on the bottom side of the map. Hey, there's an objective right there. We can control it this time because we got the advantage. And I think if they actually take advantage of the Dragon, they will have a good time. But they just need to realize that Dragon's an objective they can take. And when they start getting it, I think they're going to start winning.
All right, you heard it from the split push god himself. So we'll see if Complexity decides to employ that very same strategy. We are going to take a short break, but when we return, we'll see if Teammate can take this series in a clean sweep or if Complexity can reset and come out ahead in Game 3. Stay tuned.
Not going to stop the safeguard. Oh, Robert X. Lee forces the flash. Oh my goodness, that burst from Maple Street. He has to try and get away from Westrise. He's flashed on top of his head. Maple Street so low on health, trying to kite. It's going to be probably picking up the kill, but he'll go down to Slushy. Slushy's got such high health. Westrise now trying to get onto his face, but the rocket jumps here. Kez is going to fall. Oh, full health and then not there. The flash probably actually gets his Guardian Angel pop there as well. The health bars of Complexity are very low. Kez falls down. A shockwave not going to land on anyone. That's the double kill for Maple Street.